So anyway, Tom, sorry about that. I interrupted you and I got sidetracked again. So what were you saying about number 6?
So yeah, number 6 is Miller's Crossing.
Okay.
So like in the sort of 60s and 70s, the uh, film industry in America, they were sort of going back to gangster films a little bit, but they were kind of updated, like neo noirs. So they were kind of throwbacks to the old gangster films, but very much in the kind of modern style
Mm-hmm.
of that time. So Miller's Crossing, it's kind of like it's got all the sort of Coen traits, like there's quirky characters, a bit of comedy in it as well, but there's very much the style and everything, and the dialogue is really kind of throwing back to 30s and 40s gangster films.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't know
Uh,
that.
yeah, so this was a really good, like really underrated gangster film as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like bit of a cult film
Okay.
because it didn't do brilliantly well originally. So it's got Gabriel Byrne in.
Oh, okay. That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
so he's the lead. He's the lead in this. Then there's a lot of other character actors in it as well. Albert Finney is
Mm-hmm.
playing like this, like Marlon Brando esque Godfather kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got a lot of other really great character actors as well, like Steve Buscemi pops up.
Mm-hmm.
John Turturro again.
He's another one that pops up in quite a lot of
Yeah,
their films, isn't he?
yeah. So
Steve
it's
Buscemi.
just it's a really really great gangster film.
Yeah.
The music in it's really great as well. And
Is it quite a serious film, that one? It sounds like it might be one of them more sort of serious type ones.
it kind of is, but it's not too serious because there are
Elements of
comical
comedy
scenes
that
as
come
well.
in. Yeah, a bit like
Yeah,
Fargo.
and everyone still talks a bit like an old sort of 30s style gangster. They all sound like Jimmy Cagney.
Oh, really?
It's got this really old fashioned dialogue. So there are quirky moments, comical scenes, but there's this kind of twisting plot where Gabriel Byrne plays this. He's like the go-to guy for this main gangster,
Okay.
and they have a bit of a falling out, and he joins like the rival of this
Uh-huh.
gangster.
Is it filmed
So
in
there's
black
a bit.
and white?
No, it's in color.
Oh, okay.
So it looks really great. It's got a lot of contrast, lots of shadow.
Mm,
It does feel very classically like an old gangster film, just
really?
in color. Yeah, but yeah, so he's sort of. It's a very twisty plot where you're not too sure, where his loyalty lies.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. And he's like, he's a really underrated actor anyway. So
Yeah. Because we
this
were
is one of
talking about
the.
him in The Usual Suspects with when I spoke to Mark on
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
I heard that.
episodes.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah.
as you both said, he's really sort of underrated and underappreciated.
Yeah, he didn't
And
like
this is
Hollywood much. I think he didn't like the pressure that they put on him
yeah,
compared to England. Because actually the studios put a lot of pressure on them as well, don't they? They're required to do things a different way, and they're very There's been a lot of English actors actually that said they didn't like the crossover into going to
yeah.
Hollywood, and actually there's quite a
I
lot of
think
famous American actors that don't like Hollywood. That's why a lot of them tend to stay on the New York side. But every
I
now and then
think
they
so.
have to
Yeah,
go over,
and a
don't
few
they?
few even sort of drift off into Europe as well, and
Yeah,
or drift into TV
yeah. Well,
because
now
they find it a
TV's
little bit more
become very
interesting.
popular for them, whereas I
Yeah,
remember I remember Michael Douglas did an interview and he said, because he's doing something on Netflix, isn't he, with Danny DeVito, I think?
I think they both are. Yeah.
Yeah,
So Michael Douglas has done a couple of things on TV.
yeah, but I remember him saying that, there was a period of time, especially I think it was like in the 80s or in the 90s, where you only did TV if you were failing. Well, your career wasn't doing that well.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
basically meant your movie career was going downhill. And that was basically, because I mean, they've got to keep working, don't they? So it's like any other
yeah,
job. So, so that the TV is kind of like at the time was the last resort. And that basically wasn't a good thing for them because that meant their movie career was going downhill drastically fast. Um,
yeah,
but then, I think it's clever how people started crossing over into TV land, and that all probably started round about when Kiefer Sutherland started doing my favourite TV series,
Yeah.
24. And
Yeah.
that didn't he? And then that sort of started picking up, and a lot of famous actors a lot of movie actors started crossing over into doing shows on the streaming channels like Netflix and Amazon and Apple and all
Yeah,
that
I
kind of
think
stuff.
the roles were more interesting. The writing
Yeah,
was better as well, and now it's become a case where movies are so preoccupied with Marvel and things like that that a lot of the really great stuff in terms of characters and interesting roles is being put into TV
yeah.
and onto streaming.
And also,
So yeah,
that all the more kind of like I spoke very briefly. I remember you saying you listened to it with Mark saying that in the 90s it was a big period for the sort of basically the DIY filmmaker was breaking out. So the
yeah,
indie thing came out, and now it's all this franchise and stuff. It's gotten quite well for me, particularly new. It's gotten very monotonous. So there's no more access to cinema to seeing a variation of independent films, new up and coming filmmakers, because people don't take that chance. So that's why I think a lot of the film actors, now that they can and they're getting paid a lot of money, are crossing over into TV and streaming shows like Netflix, etc.
yeah.
Because there's more range of independent type stuff. But they all say that it was very rare. They would have never gone into TV at one point. It's only been
No, I
since.
think it was very soapy back in sort of the 90s and things like that. So it was
Yeah,
quite that there was something really kind of well written.
yeah,
Occasionally you'd have TV movies which would be,
crap.
sort of they could range that they could be sometimes they could be crap, there could be some
Yeah,
good
yeah,
ones,
yeah, yeah,
but they were kind of like one off.
yeah,
So it's in the series form because the way you film them is very very quick.
yeah.
So yeah, it just tended to be a lot of soaps and things like that, or yeah,
Which
but
you didn't need to
yeah,
be a
like you say,
particularly good actor at, did you? Really? I mean, let's
not
face it.
always, no. So yeah,
I mean,
so
it's
it
not
was
like the most. I mean, they have the most diabolical plots, don't they? Like they're
yeah,
married to their brother, and, and they find out, and then he's lost his brain or something, and then he develops a
because
new.
it's like a complete glamorous alternative to EastEnders, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Whereas
is. It's just American
same sort
style.
of thing, but very glamorous and
Stupid,
Beverly Hills
tacky.
rather than East End London and a bit grim.
So, what else did you want to say about your number 6, Will?
No, I just really recommend it because it's not a film that a lot of people have seen.
Yeah,
And
I
if you
haven't
like
seen
kind
it.
of, yeah, if you like, if you have to be a fan of like gangster films as well,
Mm.
it's one of these ones that hasn't really been discovered quite enough, I don't think.
Is it a very male ensemble film? Are there any women in it?
There are some, there are some women in it, some, quite good roles,
Yeah,
but
are
it
they
is
small
it is
parts?
still very male
Male
dominated. Yeah,
orientated. Okay.
yeah. So you got, I think, one of the actresses in it. She was one of these kind of. She was around in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, but then disappeared. So she's in this one.
Okay.
Is it Marcia Gay Harden? I think she might be but she's quite underage. She's really good in this as like a classic gangster's mole.
Okay.
So yeah, she's good in this. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, I would just recommend seeing Miller's Crossing.
Okay, I should have to give that a go.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay,
So,
so
oh, sorry.
I'll do my number 5.
Okay.
So number 5 is Barton Fink.
Okay, that's another one I haven't seen.
Yeah. So
Was that
this
one
is
of their serious ones?
it's
Or was that a bit
it's
of
a
a
bit of
strange one?
it's a comedy.
Okay.
So, but it's a kind of weird. It's a weird, quirky, sort of quite dark film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit odd. So it's one of these films which it took me like a couple of viewings to really get into, but the
Yeah.
more I see it, the more I enjoy it
Yeah.
because it's got these kind of dark twists in it. And it's a little bit surreal.
Yeah.
So there's almost like a supernatural element that kind of filters in.
Okay.
So basically, you've got John Turturro, who's this
Okay.
really successful playwright, and this is set in like the golden era of Hollywood.
Okay.
So where the screenwriter is king, basically.
Yeah.
So, which is it's a shame, really, that I'm not in the 30s because I'd be making a killing. um, but yeah, he's this playwright, and he gets hired by this studio to write a wrestling picture.
Okay.
They call it a wrestling picture.
Wrestling.
Yeah, because this is this is when B movies were really popular.
Oh, okay.
You'd always have like a double event. So you'd have the serious film first, the A movie, like Gone with the Wind, and then they'd play like a B movie straight
really?
after. Yeah, so that's where the whole B movie thing came from. It used to be from sort of double bills, and the B movie would be the kind of escapist sort of thing, like The Blob or something silly like Sinbad of the Seven Seas. So
I never saw The Blob. I've got to watch it.
Yeah. So he's this serious playwright who's hired to write a wrestling picture. He gets put up in this shoddy hotel where Steve Buscemi is the bellboy.
Okay.
And his neighbour on his floor, because I think there's not many people in the hotel, or maybe there's just two. But his neighbour is John Goodman.
Okay.
Travelling salesman who may or may not be a serial killer.
Oh, really? So he pops up again.
Yeah, so it's all these sort of quirky things. There's lots of farcical stuff. He meets like a drunken old screenwriter as well, who was once his hero, who's turned into this like really kind of abusive and depressive drunk. And then he starts a relationship with this guy's wife. Yeah, no, it's really good. And then when things start getting surreal, the visuals look really sort of amazing as well. So this was the first time they worked with Roger Deakins, who's like, the cinematographer at the moment. Everyone wants Roger Deakins at the moment to shoot their films.
Really?
And this was their first collaboration with him.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's one of those where there's lots of these little nuggets that you pick up on.
Yeah.
And you could read into the film in different ways.
And is it one of those films where you might need to watch it more than once to find something
I think definitely,
new?
Yeah.
Pick up on something
I think
new.
the first time you might be a little bit lost on it. You might think, well, it's well made, but I'm not quite
sure
getting what I'm going for.
Yeah.
But the performances are that good that you kind of you feel like you want to go back into it and have another go.
Yeah.
And then you start picking up more of these little details, and you realise it's kind of like a strange like mystery film.
Yeah.
Underneath all this sort of comedy.
Yeah.
And then John Goodman in it is, it's one of his best performances as well.
Oh, really? He's a serial killer salesman.
Yeah. So he comes on really kind of amiable, and you're not too sure how to take him. And the writer is very kind of standoffish with everyone. He's playing your classic introverted writer who just wants to be kind of left alone.
Oh, really?
I know how he feels. Yeah, it's probably why I like this film as well, because it's centered on a writer, and I tend to like films centered on writers.
Yeah.
I find them, quite interesting.
Yeah, a different approach.
Yeah. So yeah, no, this is really, really interesting film.
Okay, I've got to give that a go.
It's very unique as well, a bit like Raising Arizona, where you think, you don't really see many more films like that.
No.
This is another one of their films which is really kind of unique.
Yeah, and a bit bonkers.
Yeah. Bonkers in a good way.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about it, or do you want to go on to number 4? Is it number 4?
I'll go. Yeah, number 4.
Okay.
So number 4.
I'm
going to say this might be quite controversial.
Is it going to be my favourite one? Go on.
It could be Fargo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I would have thought that'd be number 1 for you.
It has rotated over the years, but then I've sort of changed my mind every now and again. But
so Fargo, why would you put Fargo number 4? Yeah, that is quite controversial, I think.
Because you have to see the top 3.
Okay, all right.
This is a ranking a lot of 10 out of 10 films for me. So okay.
All right, so tell us why Fargo is number 4 for you.
Fargo is just this classic tale of Jerry Lundegaard,
Mhm.
played by
William
William
H
H
Macy.
Macy.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's really great. He's like another one of those underrated character
I
actors that
hated
you don't
him in that
see enough.
film.
Yeah,
I mean, you're meant
he's
to.
such a sort of
Desperate character,
yeah.
isn't he?
He's really desperate, and he's trying to find this easy way out, and he thinks he's sort of nailed it. And this simple plan just goes progressively wrong.
He
It just
goes,
gets worse and worse.
well, it just turns into a
So
car crash, doesn't it? It gets
yeah,
like, it's meant to
which I
start
think
off very simple, and like he's just meant to have his wife kidnapped and get a ransom money from his stepdad. I mean,
yeah
not from his stepdad, from
sounds
his
simple enough.
from his father-in-law, who's really
Yeah,
rich. But then in the end, all this kind of stuff sort of starts happening along the way with these two hitmen, who one of them's
yeah.
absolutely
Peter
bonk.
Stormare,
Yeah,
I think
the
of
blonde
actor.
crazy man
Yeah,
with Steve Buscemi. Yeah, I was going to talk
Buscemi.
about that with you at the end, the horrible end scene. But carry on. We'll talk about that bit in a bit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But we'll
yeah,
get there.
yeah.
So what are we
So
going
I
to say
mean,
about Fargo?
it's classic Coens, and I don't think any filmmakers do this kind of film better than they do.
Mm,
Which is where you've got this kind of normal guy who suddenly thinks, you know what, I'm going to do something criminal.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, because
because
he's
maybe
in debt, isn't
yeah,
he?
he's
Yeah.
in debt. He's in a desperate situation because other little plans he's had before have not paid off.
Mhm.
So now he's getting a bit desperate and he's thinking, I'll do something. Oh, this will work.
And it's
And it doesn't
harmless.
exactly.
No.
So then you've got the pregnant, heavily pregnant police chief played by Frances McDormand, who's
Mhm.
amazing in it.
He was wearing a
It's just
prosthetic bump at the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And a
she
wig.
comes in. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah,
She
and
said
this
that
is the one. Yeah,
when I can't remember seeing a thing, but she said that the only time she could only get into character if she had that wig on her head, because she's got that the is it the Minnesota accent when it's are we
yeah.
gonna do that our accent, Tom? That yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. She's like, yeah. You betcha, yeah.
But again, I think they're really good at this in terms of even when they set it somewhere like Fargo, say that kind of area, they
Aren't they
really
from
set the
there
scene well.
originally? I think they're from there, aren't they? In that area, they're from
That
Minnesota.
kind of area, they might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they really do set the scene well in these
Mm.
kind of films because
It's
it's not
quite a
always
cold
just
film
LA
as
or
well,
New
isn't
York,
it?
is it? So yeah,
Yeah, it's a cold because my family moved. We did um during one of the lockdowns. I suggested we do like a film club. So instead of book club, we did it on Zoom, and every week one of us would choose a film, and then at the end of the week we'd all have to talk about it and
yeah,
just basically share our views on it and then give it a score. And some of us liked it, and the other ones felt like one of my sisters found it too cold. Um, I don't think my mum liked it particularly very much. Um,
yeah. I guess it's that genre as well that's an acquired taste.
it's a strange one, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
and this is what
and
I was
they have
talking.
a very distinct style, don't they?
Yeah,
So
and I was talking to Mark about it, and it was like, well, you don't know if it's kind of like a thriller, but then
yeah,
there's these really crazy bits of comedy that sneak in, like the execution. When I can't remember the two hitmen are on a road, and then suddenly these two innocent people in a car drive by, and then they have to shoot them because they've seen something.
yeah.
Um, and it's
So
just
it's just everything's just falling apart, getting
yeah, yeah,
worse and worse.
yeah.
More people are turning up dead.
And what I found funny about that film was how actually, I mean, I know he's a hitman, but I don't think he's meant to be a hitman, is he? He's just meant to do this silly thing, and that was it.
Yeah,
But
he's
Steve
just
Buscemi
meant to
gets
be just as someone to hired to do this simple job,
yeah,
and he's not been let in on exactly what he's getting either. So
no,
Jerry hasn't told him that he's going to be picking up $1 million or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's expecting to make 20,000 or whatever it is. from doing the job.
Yeah. But then he gets put up with this absolute lunatic of a man, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The blonde head guy. He goes, I want pancakes. I want to go to the pancake house. And he doesn't talk to him
Pancake
at all.
house.
I'm hungry now, you know. He's like, you haven't said anything to me. So, but then he's kind of like, I found Steve Buscemi to be actually quite a level-headed, good guy, bad guy. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you
And
know what I mean?
he sort of gets the worst of it. Anything that goes bad, he gets the worst, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then towards the end, that's
Like,
when he really starts losing his patience.
yeah,
But that's
gets shot
because,
in the face.
yeah, because that's when it all goes tits up.
Yeah.
But it's the other one who's absolutely insane. Like, who the hell is this guy? But yeah, is there anything else you want to say about Fargo before we get to the end scene that I was going to talk about with you?
No, should we go to the end?
Yeah. So what's that? So you know the end when she's she I can't remember. She gets onto what does she see? She's wandering
So
around. Oh, it's the car, isn't
looking
it?
for a certain car, isn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she
She's
sort of
looking
just
for a
happens
car.
upon it. Yeah,
Of the two guys, because she's managed to figure it all out. And the two guys, and they've had well, basically the crazy blonde haired one has killed Steve Buscemi. He's just been shot in the face by
yeah,
the father-in-law. And he's like, what the hell? What the hell happened? You weren't meant to turn up or whatever. It was just meant to be a drop off, wasn't it? I think that was all it was.
yeah. And he
So
didn't expect the father-in-law to have a
that's
gun
it,
on
to
him.
drop
So
it off. I can't remember exactly, but then so he gets shot in the face. He comes back and he starts shouting at the crazy blonde haired guy.
yeah,
And the
and then he's
crazy
got
blonde,
all this money that they weren't expecting,
oh,
and
and
he's
it
not told the
explodes, doesn't
blonde
it?
guy, has he? Yeah.
Yeah, there's some stuff they
Uh,
put in it. Well, and then it explodes, I think, onto him. I can't remember. And so yeah, it all goes tits wide. And so basically the blonde haired guy chases him out with an axe and basically kills him. And then there's
yeah,
that horrible scene where she stops because she sees the car, so she starts wandering around. And like when I saw, because I'd never seen this film, and I saw it when I was probably, I think I was 28, 29, and I was in Beijing for a few days with my family because we were visiting, and they went out, and I was too tired, so I thought I'll watch Fargo. And when I saw that scene, Tom, I nearly wanted to puke. When I saw, so is it a wood chipper or something? He's
yeah. It's
basically,
a wood chipper, isn't it?
yeah,
And
so
he's
this blonde haired guy is basically holding him by the legs and stuffing him down this wood chipper, and all this blood is spurting out. And it was awful. And there was one time when I was walking somewhere, and there was a tree. I'm not joking. There was a tree surgeon putting bits of wood into a wood chipper, and I said to him, I said, "Oh God, this reminds me exactly of that scene from Fargo." I was just like, oh, it was awful. I couldn't get it out of my head. But yeah, what did you think when you saw that? Did you find it funny or disturbing?
It was. I probably found it a little bit funny,
It
to be
is
honest.
funny, but in a really
It's kind of macabre,
disturbing
isn't it?
way.
Yeah, but they have a very dark sense of humour.
Yeah. I mean, why would you do that? Do you know what I mean? So it's it is funny, but it's disturbingly funny. There's like, we said there's that line between, it's kind of like horror and comedy. When it's so over
Yeah,
the top that it becomes kind of uncomfortable but funny, and then you get like slapstick comedy that can actually be very
yeah,
violent and linger on to being painful. If that makes sense for the viewer to watch.
yeah, and that almost becomes a little bit, comical again, like almost Looney Tunes like.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And also, do you know what I thought about that film was I didn't think the father-in-law had much compassion for Jerry in
no,
general sense. There was do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
like his
so
daughter
yeah,
wasn't right for him or whatever. You could tell there wasn't a good relationship between her husband and her father. If that makes
no,
sense.
because I
But
mean, obviously, he's like very wealthy. Maybe he's a different class, and maybe his he thinks his daughter's married beneath her.
yeah, and there's one point where he says, "Oh, Scotty and and what's her face, his daughter, never have to worry. They'll always be fine. But
Yeah,
then he's kind of like, and Jerry's trying really hard to get money of him, like, oh, there's this deal going on. He goes, oh, but it's not going to work out. I'm not interested, basically. So,
yeah,
so he's basically, and there's that, there's that other scene it's again horrible but funny, is when she runs off with a bag on her head. She escapes from the car or something when they open the boot, the two hitmen,
yeah,
and that she runs off, but she can't see where she's going because she's got a plastic bag over her head, and she bangs into a tree, and you're like,
yeah,
it's like a headless chicken running all over the place, and they're like, whoops, kind of thing. And when you watch it, it is really funny, but you shouldn't be laughing because this poor woman's been kidnapped.
yeah. But I mean, they're just really good at sort of making you laugh at these kind of things
Yeah, yeah,
by the way they play it out.
yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say about Fargo?
No, that's okay. So I think shall we do number three?
Yeah.